Hey, what's up? It's Jim, and today I'm going to talk about the film Terminator Genisys. Walking into Terminator Genisys with such incredibly low expectations made me worried if I would be too one-sided, if I would just come out totally hating this movie. And you could say that makes anything I say null and void, because I was always going to hate Terminator Genisys. I have actually seen movies that I thought I was going to hate, and the movie itself has turned me around, and Terminator Genisys is not one of those movies. In fact, Terminator Genisys kept me in the normal purgatory of watching it and just kind of existing on a plane of existence of meeting my exact low expectations, but not exceeding it in terribleness and making me think, oh god, this is even worse than I thought. It kind of just met me in the middle ground of awfulness that you guessed it probably would for most of the runtime. It didn't surprise me with terribleness, but that might have been because I was so numb to the pain of seeing this franchise brought out yet again and ripped apart for reasons I'm not sure of, other than the obvious cash grab sequel thing that they've been keep trying to do. There has been some talk in the press that, well, maybe because Jurassic World did really well, and that was based on a lot of nostalgia, maybe Terminator Genisys will do really well, and maybe people will want to see Terminator Genisys because of nostalgia. Nostalgia in the movies is very big. The thing with Terminator Genisys versus Jurassic World is Jurassic World was a sequel that the public wanted. Terminator Genisys is nobody's idea of a Terminator movie that they actually wanted, and it doesn't have that idea in it of other films we've had this summer that are kind of franchises coming back. When you look at Jurassic World, it has the fun. It's the kind of film that the audience wanted. You look at Mad Max Fury Road, and it's done by the original auteur of the original franchise. It's a lot of fun. It makes sense that there would be another awesome one. It fits within the franchise. Terminator Genisys doesn't want to do either of those things. Another sequel in a long past done franchise. Everyone always wanted a Terminator 3. Everyone, the whole 10 years between 2 and 3, people kept saying, oh man, it's gonna be so awesome when 3 comes out, I can't wait. And it was okay, and we're all like, oh. But if they made a movie about the future war with Skynet, I mean, that would be cool. There's no way that could suck, because like that seems so awesome. How could you screw that up? And then Terminator Salvation came out, and that was really bad. For some reason, everyone thought the guy who directed the music video for Smash Mouth's All-Star should direct a Terminator movie. That one actually was probably worse than this. And then they were like, well, what if we went back in time in the original, and Sarah Connor's different, she's tough and she's not weak, and then also Skynet's like an app now, and John Connor is bad, and Schwarzenegger's old, and we get newer actors who suck in it. What if we do all those things? Wouldn't that? And no, it wouldn't, because why is this is awful. Why does this keep going? It's just like we've passed the point of no return into the cash grab sequel. So far past that, it's just in this terrible zone of moderately entertaining, let you wash over you kind of a movie that these movies have become. And Terminator Genisys might be the most bland of them all. Not the most extremely terrible, but the most bland, as it kind of washes over you, as these past 3 films has washed over pop culture and then washed right out of our memories. First, in the future, in 2027, they're going to destroy all this stuff, and John Connor knows they have a time machine for reasons they don't explain. This movie doesn't explain things. If you're like, I have a lot of questions, maybe I fell asleep or something. No, this movie expects there to be sequels to it. It should have learned the lessons of the last 2 times to reboot the Terminator franchise, and those films thought they were gonna have sequels to them, but that didn't work out either. Obviously, this one, it will work out. So John Connor and Kyle Reese go, and they do this thing, and they go in the time machine. You know, he goes back, and then he sees Sarah Connor, and she's not weak. She knows things, and she's like Sarah Connor in Terminator 2. And Arnold Schwarzenegger's Terminator raised her from the 70s and looks infinitely older than 10 years, by the way. That makes no sense. I mean, it would have made a little more sense, because wouldn't he look like Schwarzenegger in 94? That makes no sense, but this movie, again, doesn't make sense. And then why does he anyway? So they're there, and then apparently Sarah Connor knew how to build a time machine. She uses a CPU from the Terminator that came back in 84, because that still happened, I guess. And no one knows why Schwarzenegger came back in 73. They never address that. That's never addressed. That's not a spoiler. because it's a spoiler of something that never happens. They're gonna go to 97, but then they're like, oh, the future changed because we went to time travel and stuff. And so then they go to 2017 to stop the Genisys thing, which is why this Genisys is spelled all weird because of the thing in this. And they have to stop that and Skynet's new way of destroying everybody by making an app that seamlessly locks everything together, and then they'll use to start the cyber war. One of the things that separates especially this Terminator film from the first two Terminator films, other than this movie not being good, is that the first two Terminator films are probably more well known for their awesome action sequences and the parts that wow you with special effects and stuff, but really they're more about the moments that take place between those sequences. There's a large part of Terminator 2 where there's not a lot of awesome action going on, where it's very slow, where they're just driving on the road trying to get away, and that sets up more and more about the characters and the relationship, and you start to actually care about the characters, making the action sequences mean a lot more. So when you don't have that, when this film is so jam-packed with action, it has an incredible pace to it, but it just action sequence after action sequence after action sequence. And when it tries to do character development, which is brief, which is kind of nice of it to not have me endure that, because that would be even worse, it just really doesn't build a relationship. So like Sarah Connor, to me, that character means something, or John Connor in T2, or Arnold Schwarzenegger's Terminator character, or Kyle Reese, because I spent time with them. I don't really spend time with them, and then when I do, it's kind of just bad acting. That really hurts this movie. It just makes this film feel like a disposable CG action movie from the 2000s. You think of all these big franchises now, and they at least try to get a better director or try to have some good writing or something that'll make us keep coming back. That's kind of one of the cooler things about newer blockbusters. Look at like the Planet of the Apes franchise was not a franchise I particularly liked before Rise of the Planet of the Apes, and then it got me into it and I started liking all of the franchise. They're just taking advantage of the name and that people will see a Terminator movie, but they're not really thinking about getting people to fall in love with this franchise. There's no way you could fall in love unless you like explosions and you're stupid, and those are probably the only reasons, because there's nothing there. The acting's not good, the story's not good, the script's not good, and I think also the direction is particularly bland. This is by Alan Taylor, who got his name for directing episodes of Game of Thrones and directed Thor: The Dark World also, and he is mostly known for being a TV director. And there's certain TV directors who can go from TV to film, and that works very well, and they understand the different worlds. But then there's certain TV directors that go to movies, and it just feels like TV direction in that it feels like the crew knows what they're doing. It feels like everyone involved knows what to do, but it feels like the director in this film, Alan Taylor, has no real control over it. And that's something that, like, the first two Terminator movies were auteurist movies, and I think when you look at all the other Terminator movies, they're done by these forgettable directors who, the only one I can name who's not Alan Taylor is Mick G. They aren't really thinking about ways to continue this franchise that will really effectively work, and having such a shitty director, he doesn't seem to care so much about acting. It feels like he's kind of treading in a CG mess of a grossness, and he doesn't know how to kind of climb out of it and make it interesting and captivating movie, or finding a way to update it or reboot it effectively. The thing about the first two Terminator movies is they were theoretical to each other. The second one was a theoretical difference, that Arnold Schwarzenegger's Terminator character had become good, and that was a switch, and this is trying to emulate that, but it's not really working at all, regardless of if the surprise of John Connor being the bad guy was left intact and not put in the trailers. I don't think that would really help the movie. It probably would have made me like it a teensy bit more, but this movie's so awful it wouldn't have done anything, because it's not really that interesting of a surprise, because there's not really enough time to really think about it, and then there's like explosions again. It just seems to really love action sequences. The thing is though, is I like action sequences, but none of these are particularly done that well. They're not action sequences that like a bad action movie where they spend all the time on the action sequence and don't spend enough time on the story and the acting, and you can kind of get through it. Terminator Genisys doesn't even have that. None of the action sequences are that particularly cool. I don't get with Genisys what their plan is, because there's so many threads that are just left, like why was the Terminator sent back to 72? Why is this? Why is that? There's so many questions that left unanswered, and it didn't feel like I was watching a complete story, but then the film tried to act like a complete story. You can't do both. There are too many things that they're like, I don't know why, who cares? A lot of dumb logic to it. And I actually like time travel movies. I like the part in Back to the Future 2 where he draws the line and explains the alternate timelines. And this film like makes that boring. They don't really have fun with the time travel elements. There's no parts where like she doesn't know how to use an iPhone or a tablet. It's just another excuse to have more explosions in another set piece that's already boring to look at. The Terminator movies worked really well, and the reason the first two have maintained classics despite us being barraged by terrible shitty sequels every couple years or so is because they're remarkably fun, amazing, awesome action movies. And the sequels have never been able to understand that. They've never been able to understand why these films keep getting rewatched. They just understand the marketability. They need to think about why people want to go back to these movies. And we're having this wave of nostalgia, and there seems to be a lot more films that get it than don't get it now, which is awesome, which I like. But Terminator Genisys is in the pile of films and producers who don't get it. They don't get why you want to go to the movies and see this awesome thing that you've loved so much for so long. Terminator Genisys reads like bad fan fiction on a lot of stupid pills. It is an awful movie that just washes over you. I wasn't so upset watching it. I was kind of just in this daze of CG blandness. I have never liked them making films without James Cameron of the Terminator films, and I know he endorsed this movie because he's stupid, but James Cameron got how to make a sequel to this. James Cameron's the person who labored for like 6 months to make Terminator 2. He worked on that movie forever. He worked on Terminator forever. They're real labors of love and labors of passion and talent, and both of those films put him on the map and let him direct even bigger movies and made him into the James Cameron, for better or for worse, he is today. None of these Terminator films have been able to do that, and I think you need to look at the films and look at why they worked. And it's not that you need an auteur. I mean, look at Jurassic World. It's just that you need to get that passion in there. You need to get that fun, amazing action movie that everyone remembers for the lines and actually have developed characters. And Terminator Genisys is one of the worst movies of the summer because it's just all the crap you hate about Hollywood, all the bad things people say about the movies you like, and this is the perfect representation of that because it has nothing there. It is not going to stay with you. You're not going to be interested in seeing this again. One of the dumbest blockbusters I have seen this summer, and I saw San Andreas. It is the dumbest and one of the worst big budget films I think Hollywood's put out in a very long time. Alan Taylor should not be directing big budget movies. He doesn't have the talent for it. He's somewhere between a TV director and a yes man comes his bland blockbuster direction. I don't really like bland blockbusters, and I don't think audiences really like them anymore either. This isn't like a new kind of bad movie. This is the bad kind of movie that doesn't really care about anything other than trying to just blandly thrill you and hoping it works out. I don't think that can work out. It will never work out because the films and the blockbusters that stay with us, there's a reason people love and keep talking about Furiosa, is because that was a character that represented something to us. And that's the same thing with Sarah Connor and John Connor and the Terminator character in general. And when you get to Terminator Genisys and these films just expect you to love them, and they're not going to prove it to you, and that's not how storytelling works. They're just hoping that, oh, well, you know Sarah Connor and Kyle Reese. Well, I don't know these versions. They needed to understand that. There are certain fundamental rules in storytelling that this film just doesn't really give a shit about because it's just going to wow you with all these different Terminators and Arnold fighting himself. It was directed badly. The action wasn't interesting. I hope you never see this movie and expose yourself to such crap, because not only is it not a funny B movie, it's not like Strange Magic and we can joke about haha Strange Magic's terrible. This is just one of the worst things that Hollywood has to offer, and it's a bad side of Hollywood that it looks like current blockbuster filmmaking is moving away from. But oh no, Terminator Genisys rears its ugly head to confirm that we'll never really get away from this, because there will always be cash grab sequels, and they will always be there to ruin our franchises and ruin the memory of them. And so when I tell someone, hey, have you seen a Terminator movie? I go, yeah, I saw Terminator Genisys and I'm done with that crap. And I think really we should have been done with this crap, but Hollywood just keeps bringing it back in and digging up this corpse to hopefully shake some money out of it and keep these cash grab sequels going. And watching one of my beloved childhood franchises ripped apart over and over again and ruined, and its memory beaten to death once again with another truly bad and even blander movie than I could have even possibly imagined when I saw the first two. So if you have seen Terminator Genisys and you would like to talk about it, then comment below in the comments and subscribe if you would like to.